I would love to know. In fact, the audience that's watching right now, if they don't know you, then I would love you to describe yourself in a few sentences on who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
Sure. So Mumtaz Parker, and I am originally from South Africa, but I have been calling Aotearoa, New Zealand home for more than 20 years now. And yeah, and so for me, really passionate about being able to make a difference and hopefully being able to motivate and inspire people, especially young people. Um, so yeah, that has been my aim in life.
And why have you made that your aim in life? I would just love to know.
I think just thinking back to my own struggles, my own challenges, pathways that I've had to navigate, and also just being able to use my experiences to be able to help others, so who are navigating those same journeys, those same pathways, what may not necessarily be the same, but if they are able to learn something from my experiences, then I'm happy with that.
Okay. So, based upon your experiences and your struggles in living in New Zealand, I would love to know as to what brought you here to New Zealand and what are some of
Hmm.
the struggles you have faced as a Muslim woman in the Western society.
Yeah, I think it also goes back before actually moving to New Zealand, and it's I grew up in apartheid South Africa,
Hmm.
and so grew up feeling different, being othered, and moving. It was always a dream of mine, since I was quite young, that I actually wanted to live in New Zealand. Knew nothing about New Zealand at the time, but said to my mum, I'm going to live in New Zealand one day. And my mum was just like, whatever, what does a 12-year-old know? And yeah, and then once I completed my qualification, I decided that, I really would love to come in and live in New Zealand, and decided to make the move here. Um, I think the challenge was moving from South Africa, coming to New Zealand, not having had uh, any experience. My qualification, my undergraduate was in South Africa, didn't understand the culture. So there was a lot of learning that needed to happen from on my end. And I think having come to New Zealand and living in Whakatane, which is rural New Zealand, really gave me that rich exposure to New Zealand's culture. And so really grateful that that was my first step, the first place that I lived in New Zealand. And then it was about firstly settling in, but then it was also about being able to, find a job. And having come from a job in South Africa, it was quite challenging to be able to get the same level of job coming here to New Zealand. And so had to really settle for much less,
Hmm.
um, and so that came with a number of challenges in itself.
Hmm. So, I was reading your book, Betting on a Hijabi, and I've read a few pages of it, and I've really enjoyed the sort of aspect of how you showed the life of a hijabi in the first few
Mhm,
pages. And
mhm.
I think the audience would love to know what this book is about and why you wrote it in the first place.
Sure. So it didn't start out as a book. So I started writing and just jotting down, my thoughts, my experiences, and that started in 2019. And I would, in the early hours of the morning, I would sit and I would write. And after a few years, I had a look at everything that I've been writing and just thought to myself, because it was a healing process for me as well, putting things on paper. And I then, having gone through it, just reading through all my experiences and how I have navigated some of those, spaces. And I thought to myself that actually this could possibly help someone. And even if it can just, make a difference to one person who can say, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one. There is someone who, feels this way or has been through these experiences, then they can use this as a motivation or an inspiration to know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And just a resource to help navigate some of those challenges.
So what do you think is the main message that you've portrayed in your own book?
I think, and I've got the book here, and I think just the sentence that I put here, how faith, resilience, and fierce determination shaped a leader, is find your voice is the important thing. And sometimes fear holds us back because we don't want to say the wrong thing. We don't want to feel like we are being seen as ungrateful when we are asking for, whether it is a space to pray or, needing to leave early because you want to make it back in, home in time to break your fast or, and so being able to find your voice is vitally important. And I think I'm hopeful that this book will help people find their voice.
So do you think this book should be read only by Muslim women, or should you think that men should also read this book?
Absolutely. This book is for everyone. And I was deliberate at the end of most of the chapters, I have almost a bit of a guide or a resource of, if you are a D&I leader, this is what you need to be thinking about. If you are a faith-based leader, this is what you need to be thinking about. If you're a young reader, and so wanting this book to really be a guide for anyone that's reading it. And it's absolutely not only for hijabi women. And in fact, I have to say that the first 3 people that actually read the book for me to be able to provide me with feedback, they were all Muslim men. And the first one being my husband, because my husband is my biggest supporter, but he's also my biggest critic. And then 2 of my really dear friends, and one of them being Brother Niaz. And so, and I have had non-Muslims read it as well. And the feedback that I have received is that this is a vital resource for both inspiring, young people of color, young and not so young hijabi women, but also to non-Muslims, managers, employers, that this is a guide, a good guide for them.
So was there a particular event that happened in your life when you were in New Zealand that made you want to think, I need to write a book specifically for this topic, for this issue, so that other Muslim women like myself can learn from these, issues and these experiences?
Absolutely. And the book has all of those experiences in it, experiences from hiring managers, writing on my application document that candidate wears a hijab, to a healthcare professional trying to steer me away from planning to have a third child, because I do have I've got 3 boys, and at the time I had 2 of my boys, and the comment that she made was around the fact that the chances are that I would have another boy and that I'd be in a household filled with men. And one of the things I just also want to add is that there's also a bit in the book about, some of the tough times that Muslim men have, and therefore I say the book is really not only for hijabi women, because I do think that, especially in the media, Muslim men, they get a bad rap. And I wanted to ensure, and as a mother of 3 Muslim boys, it was important that I, included that in here.
Now, based on your book, I really want to touch upon leadership, and I have discussed with Brother Niaz about what is it that makes a good leader. But I want to also hear from you, because I know a lot of people will have different opinions of what makes a good leader. So I would love to ask you, what do you think are some qualities or some attributes that make a very, very good leader?
I think it really comes down to treating people as the core, and I always say to people I talk to when I talk about leadership is that we spend most of our time at work, and it really needs to be a place that people want to get up in the morning and go to and be good at, what they're doing, give 100%. Another quality I would say is empathy. You cannot be a good leader without empathy, because with empathy comes the understanding. With empathy comes getting to actually know your team, know your staff, their families, to understand when they're having a rough day because you know them well enough. Those are, that's really key, because I think if you really have, and the book talks about that as well, is empathy-based leadership. And, it's really, really important.
So based on these qualities, what do you think a lot of leaders today lack most when it comes to the leadership?
I think a few things. Lack of time. And the reason for that is that sometimes leaders are so focused on the outcomes, and wanting to meet these really tough and tight deadlines and profits, and not actually focusing on the people who are who's helping the organization get and meet those targets.
Mm-hmm.
And again,
So,
I would say that, if they, if you are an empathy-based leader, the people will be your focus and the core, because, the saying that the customer is always right, the customer is key. Absolutely. But I would put a bit of a different spin on it, is to say that your employees actually come first, your staff come first, because when you do put them, if you give them that importance and you take care of them, they will provide a flawless customer service, because they will be so happy, they will want to do their job really well, and in that way they then take care of the customer. So
So, has there been a point in time in your life where someone has come up to you and said, Sister Mumtaz, I think you can be an exceptional leader?
oh I think feedback I've received from my managers, and feedback. And one of the other things I do as well with my teams is that, I always say managers have the opportunity to do performance reviews, whether that's annually, quarterly, but there's no opportunity for staff to actually performance review their managers. And so for me, what I like to do is with my teams is to ask them questions. What do I need to stop doing? What do I need to start doing? And what do I need to continue doing? And I think that, and feedback that I have received from my teams that I have had over the years, and also my own managers, have, provided me with feedback in terms of my leadership style.
Okay. And when I was talking with Brother Niaz a few weeks ago, a public figure came into my mind when we started talking about leadership. Have you heard of the name of Zohran Mamdani?
Yes, I did.
Yes. So
Yes.
I was planning on discussing about him in this podcast episode because I didn't have time in the last one. So about Zohran Mamdani, how do you see
Mhm.
him as a leader?
I see that he's with the people, and he is on the bus, he's at your corner cafe, whatever you want to call it, restaurant, street food. He's with the community, he's with the people. He's approachable, he's likable, but for him it's about the people, and that's the core.
So do you think that for any leader to be successful, just like Zohran Mamdani, they have to understand how people function and how people's emotions are dealt with in a specific way?
Absolutely. And it just comes back to my earlier point, is that people need to bring their whole self to work every day. And that is different for everyone on whichever day that might be. It's about understanding the people you work with, knowing their families, birthdays. Are their kids are they needing to be at the doctors? Do they play any sports? For them to be able to also feel comfortable to be able to say, actually, I am having a tough day, or I have left home and I have just argued with my teenage daughter, or, and being comfortable to bring their whole self to work is really, really important.
So let's say if I was a child, or not child, teenager, and
Okay.
I'm a shy teenager, I don't know how to talk to anyone, I can't communicate, I can't do anything properly, and
Mhm.
I say to myself, I want to be a very good leader one day, and I want to lead someone, I want to lead a team, I want to lead an organization. Where do I start in terms of my leadership journey?
Uh, Look to people that display the leadership qualities that you are looking for, or that you want to aspire to. And, depending on who that is, talk to them if you can, if that's possible. If it's a famous person, then, if they have a book or a podcast, or a TED talk, research that, and get that information. But I think the key is about and it's about starting really small, but the networking is really important. So making those connections is really, really important. And even just talking to someone in your local community that can help you to make those connections initially. I think mentoring, having a mentee-mentor relationship is also really, really important. So seek out some mentorship programs. And there are quite a few programs around. But also just, in that community space, if there is someone that you feel, hey, actually, this is a really good leader, or comes across as someone who's really community focused and have those leadership qualities, is to reach out to them, whether that is via email or talking to someone that might know and can put you in touch with this person.
When you mentioned mentors, it reminded me of a very funny story. So I had a friend in high school, and he wanted to, learn how to become a good leader. So he started, applying for these different roles in high school, being the captain of his football team and being part of the debate club and all that sort of stuff. And he decided one day that, he was going to find a mentor and, to train him to become a good leader. So what happened was that he started, messaging, emailing a lot of these big people in New Zealand, big entrepreneurs, founders. And, he DM'd him or emailed him. And I don't know how he emailed him, but it was like a very demanding email. So it wasn't like, it was sort of like, can you please be my leader, be my mentor, or otherwise I'll be miserable, I'll fail in life, whatever. And so what happened was, that he gets a message from one of the people he emailed, and that message said, well, please don't message me again because I have no plans on accepting your demeaning request of being a mentor.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, wow.
Yeah. So is there like that? My point being is that, is there a certain way you should come across towards a mentor and say, can you be my mentor? Because of course you can't be very demanding to someone and you can't force them to do it. So is there a specific way to approach them?
I think being able to identify in the email why you've reached out to them. So, if it was, I was taken aback by your fantastic talk, or, I heard you on a podcast episode and really liked what you had to say about XXX, and, and being able to let them know why you have approached them. What is it about them that you feel that they would be a really good mentor? I think on the flip side, there was actually a real opportunity for that mentor who received this email from your friend, that, to actually go back and identify that actually some guidance around, I'm not available to be able to assist you with mentoring, but my advice when you are reaching out to others is to frame it in this particular way. So there was an opportunity lost there from the mentor's perspective. So, yeah.
I want to just go back to your book, and I wanted to ask, what's your plan in terms of this book in the next 4 or 5 years?
So at the moment, I am working on getting an online version. There have been a number of people that have got in touch who prefer the online version. And with that as well, an audio book, because again, I have had people who have reached out to say that audio books suit them better. And I am also looking at a leadership workbook and some online training as well with this book. So, yeah, lots of things in motion at the moment. But inshallah, no matter how much we plan, our Almighty, our Creator, is the ultimate planner. So I will, go with the flow of the Almighty.
That's great. And I wanted to ask, if you were, let's say you go back a few years, look back at your 20-year-old self, and you see the status that they're in, and you look at the experiences that they're going through. What advice would you give your 20-year-old self right now, based on your experiences?
That it is all going to work out, and that some things take a little bit longer than others, but, you will get to where you need to be. Not necessarily where you think you need to be, but where the plan that has been put in place for you. And I think sometimes we can become quite discouraged when things don't happen as quickly as we want it to happen. But again, it brings me back to, no matter what timelines and timeframes we have put in place for ourselves, it's really up to our, having that faith in our Deen and in our Creator, that things will work out, and that with every challenge, there is ease. And sometimes these things happen, and at the time we are questioning, why is this happening? What have I done? Why are things so difficult? Or why something didn't work out. And then sometimes it's a year later, sometimes it's 5 years later, you then realize, oh, actually that's why that happened at that point.
I think that's really great advice, and I think if I were given that advice, I'd take it to heart, really. We are at the end of our podcast, and I have a very special tradition at the end of every podcast.
Yes.
And it's that every guest that I have, I make sure to have them create a question for the audience to answer. And so in my previous podcast episode, I asked my guest, and he asked the audience, what is it that you're not able to risk today that will or will not affect your future? And so I wanted to ask you, what is your question for the audience for this episode?
My question would be, what is stopping you? What is stopping you from getting to that next level? What is stopping you from getting that next role? What is stopping you from finding your voice? That's my simple question. What is stopping you?
And why do you choose that question?
Because I think sometimes our fear keeps us. It is what stops us. And it's really about, go after it. What's the worst that can happen? Someone can say no. But what if they say yes?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Sister Mumtaz. It's been a very big honor of having you on this episode, and I really hope you've enjoyed. And for those of you who are watching on YouTube, if you haven't already, then please go ahead and subscribe and like this episode. And if you would like to get in touch with Sister Mumtaz, then I'll definitely have her LinkedIn in the description down below. So please go ahead, check her out, connect with her, and see what she can offer you, as if you want to, approach her as a mentor or anything above else. But anyway, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sister Mumtaz.
Thank you so much. And I am really grateful that you reached out. And Ayan, continue doing the great things you're doing. It's fantastic. And you yourself, you are a fantastic role model to other young people. So well done. And may you be successful in everything you do.
Inshallah. Thank you so much.